Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Raisha Saigal. On the show tonight, Russia continues to launch a massive offensive in Ukraine ahead of the Alaska meeting this Friday between the US President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. We will also get you an exclusive conversation with John Bolton, the former NSA to Trump during his first term, and what he thinks about the upcoming Alaska meet. Also on Gravitas, we will tell you why Trump is so soft on China after he delayed tariffs on Beijing by 90 days. All that and a lot more lined up for you on Gravitas tonight. Let's get you started. This Friday, US President Donald Trump will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska for the first time since returning to office. On paper, it's a feel-out meeting, a chance to explore an end to Europe's deadliest war in decades. But on the ground, Ukraine says it's anything but that. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia is preparing new offensives and not for peace. He accuses Putin of getting ready for a major Russian push instead of stopping the war, and he may not be wrong. Take a look at these visuals on your screens right now. The video has been released by Russia's defense ministry. It shows what appears to be Russian troops waving their flag in the Ukrainian village of Yablonivka, which Russia said it had captured on August 9th. What is happening is that the Russian forces have made a sudden thrust into eastern Ukraine, that's near the mining town of Dobropilya, a move that may be designed to increase the pressure on Ukraine to cede land. As the US and Russian presidents prepare to meet, Ukraine's war map shows Russian troops advancing at least 10 kilometers in two prongs over recent days. It's one of the most dramatic gains in a year, part of a push to take all of Donetsk. Russia also claims to have captured another settlement in eastern Donetsk region. Russian forces say that they are launching strikes on the Ukrainian military in multiple directions, including Sumy, Kharkiv, and even Donetsk. Russian air forces attacked drones, missile forces and artillery units destroyed Ukrainian long-range drone assembly units and even storage sites. Ammunition depots were also not spared, and temporary deployment sites of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries. All of these came under Russian attack. According to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, on the same day, 137 clashes took place in frontline areas within the span of 24 hours, and that's according to some war experts. All this points to Russian aim to increase pressure on Kyiv to cede land as US and Russian presidents prepare to meet this Friday in Alaska. Russian troops have advanced by at least 10 kilometers, roughly 6 miles north in two prongs over recent days, part of a drive to gain full control of Donetsk. The advance reportedly is one of the most dramatic in the last year. They say that Russian forces are exploiting gaps in Ukraine's defenses, infiltrating deeper and seeking to quickly consolidate for further advances. Unconfirmed media reports also say that the Russian President Vladimir Putin has told Trump that he wants Ukraine to hand over parts of the Donetsk region that Russia does not currently control. There's no comment from Moscow on this as of now. Ukraine's military, for its part, insists that the situation is not a complete breakthrough, but look at what has happened in the past. Russian offensives have preceded negotiations, a pattern that now experts say is used by Russia to gain leverage at bargaining tables. A Russian breakthrough could come a sort of gift to Putin. That's during the negotiations, increasing pressure on Kyiv to make territorial concessions to avoid further losses. Yes, Ukraine right now is facing manpower shortage, but they're also hard at work to defend their cities. I'm talking about 4 heavily defended urban centers: Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, Drusivka, and lastly, Kostyavtynivka. Russian forces would need to capture all these 4 urban places and the cities before claiming the rest of the region. These are the fortress cities that remain difficult for the Russians to take control of. Ukraine's general staff said its forces liberated 2 settlements in the Sumy region from the Russian troops. And earlier this week, Kyiv reported retaking Bezhelevkia. And these are all small gains for Ukraine right now, but Kyiv is putting up a fight. Just yesterday, Ukrainian drones hit Russia's Orenburg helium plant, located in the city of Orenburg. This is the only facility in Russia which makes helium and is an important component for missile manufacturing, space technology, and the aviation industry. Orenburg Oblast borders Kazakhstan in southern Russia, with the helium plant situated about 1,200 kilometers from Ukraine's front line. So, it's fair to say that Ukraine delivered a big blow to the Russians. Meanwhile, that was about what is happening on the ground. Diplomacy continues amid the fighting. US President Donald Trump has said that Kyiv and Moscow will both have to cede land to end the war. And this week's Alaska talks, he says, will reveal whether Putin is willing to make a deal. Trump has described the meeting as a feel-out. He has predicted that he would know probably in the first 2 minutes itself if progress was possible, if there was a deal. He says he will tell Putin to end the war, but he also says that he will walk away. Those remarks have alarmed European capitals as well. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas has warned against concessions before an unconditional ceasefire. Not just that, UK's Prime Minister as well as European leaders have similarly said that any peace must be built with Ukraine and not imposed on Kyiv. Germany, meanwhile, plans a virtual meeting of European leaders in a bid to discuss pressure on Russia before a Europe-US call with President Trump. NATO, EU and Ukrainian officials are also expected to join. But Washington has not disclosed any concrete territorial proposals or a mechanism to ensure the Russian compliance with any ceasefire that might be struck. As leaders prepare to meet in Alaska, lines are shifting on the ground, and Ukraine's fate may hinge on whether those shifts become leverage at the talks table or just precursors to a wider, bigger offensive. And for more on this, we were earlier joined by John Bolton, former National Security Advisor to US President Donald Trump during his first term, and he has also witnessed the Helsinki meet between Trump and Putin in 2018. We asked Ambassador Bolton about his perspective on the upcoming Alaska meet between Putin and Trump, and this is what he had to say.
Well, I think it's very close to a decision uh, that Trump thinks that Putin's moving in the right direction. I think what Trump wants out of this meeting in Alaska is either some feeling that it's worth more of his time to try and negotiate a truce, a ceasefire, call it what you will, or whether it's time to back out entirely. So he's basically saying if the offer looks fair, I'll pass it on to Zelensky and the Europeans. He doesn't say then he's going to continue to try and mediate or help reach a solution. He said, for example, the next meeting should be between Putin and Zelensky. I don't necessarily need to be there. Um, so I think that while Trump is motivated by the feeling he may yet win a Nobel Peace Prize here, what he's really looking to do still is extricate himself from Ukraine because he sees in it failure. He said again yesterday, this is Biden's war, it's not my war. And I think that remain his objective is either to get a ceasefire and therefore get a Nobel Peace Prize in his mind, or get out of it without any further damage to himself. Right. I think the meeting in Alaska is a win for Putin. I mean, he goes from being an international pariah, leading a rogue state that committed unprovoked aggression against Ukraine, to standing in the world spotlight, having his picture taken with the president of the United States. That's a big win for him right there. And I think he will use the opportunity to meet with Trump to try and work his KGB training on him further and see if he can't make steps toward the relationship they used to have, which in Trump's mind was that they were good friends. I think Putin pushed that envelope, whether intentionally or unintentionally, further than he intended, because in past several weeks, Trump has said repeatedly that he's disappointed with Putin, unhappy with him. And that's why some of the threats that were made about Russia, if it didn't come to a ceasefire, were made. So if Putin can roll that back, that's as big a victory for him as anything else. Well, I think Putin is very focused. He knows exactly what he thinks Russia's national interests are, and that's what he's pursuing. He sees this Alaska summit as a great opportunity for him to shape Trump's thinking on the state of play in Ukraine, and without Zelensky being there to contradict him. I think that's why the Europeans have moved to hold what they're calling a virtual summit on Wednesday, first with just European leaders, then with Trump and perhaps other Americans invited in to participate, so that they can try and have a word with him before he listens to Putin. But look, a virtual summit is a bunch of people looking at TV screens. It's not the same thing as being in the room with the person. And I think Putin knows that. We'll see how we won't see the pictures, of course, but it'll be interesting to hear reports on how long Trump's attention was maintained watching all these European leaders on a TV screen. Right. Well, this is something we actually saw earlier this year when Trump and Putin were speaking by phone, and it came at the time in late February in the Oval Office when Trump said to Zelensky, "You don't have any cards." I think Putin wants Trump in that same mood, and it certainly seems from Trump's comments yesterday that he's moving in that direction. He said he couldn't understand why Zelensky was having trouble with Ukraine's constitution, which prohibits ceding any land to any foreign power, and basically criticized Zelensky for his actions over the past 3.5 years of the war, as if Ukraine had started the war. I mean, that is the Russian position, essentially. And to hear the U.S. president say that's more than a little disturbing. Well, I think the dynamic will be largely Trump trying to play the role of leader of a great power dealing with the leader of another great power, whereas what Putin's trying to do is advance his substantive agenda in Ukraine. Trump will be delighted with the press conference that will follow the meeting if the two of them stand together as they did in Helsinki. Hundreds of reporters, dozens of television cameras. What better existence can Trump imagine? But I think he knows so little about Ukraine or Russia, even having been president for 4 years. Putin knows all that any leader can know about what he wants in Ukraine, and I think it's a mismatch in that regard. Trump will be willing to find areas of agreement because he thinks it'll help him get a Nobel Peace Prize, which is his ultimate objective. So we're going into it that Putin wants Ukraine and Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not a good look.
All right, world's two biggest economies have decided to pause their economic warfare. The US made a surprising concession, a 90-day pause on tariffs for Chinese goods. Critics question that how the US President Donald Trump can take on all other big and small economies, but when it comes to taming the dragon, he needs to think twice. Our next report telling you more.
Look at that. China, first row. China, 67%.
The trade war with China has been a defining feature of recent American foreign policy, a battle waged with tariffs and sanctions. It has been framed as a fight for American jobs and a necessary correction to decades of unfair trade practices. Yet, in a course reversal, the White House has hit the pause button, halting a tariff hike that W is poised to deliver a crushing blow.
We'll see what happens. China's been, we've been dealing very nicely with China, as you probably have heard. They have tremendous tariffs that they're paying to the United States of America. And we'll see what happens. They've been dealing quite nicely. The relationship is very good with President Xi and myself.
The complexity lies in the very fabric of the global economy, where America is inextricably linked to the dragon it seeks to tame. The Chinese economy is a behemoth, a colossal engine of production that the U.S. cannot simply detach from without risking a catastrophic self-inflicted wound. A full-scale tariff war is a two-way sword that harms American consumers and businesses as much as it does Beijing. Many experts are also pointing out how Trump going soft on China but playing hardball with India.
Well, I think that India is very concerned about its relative position, and they're particularly concerned about what's going on with China. China is a bigger importer of oil, for example, than India from Russia, and yet that doesn't seem to have gone into the discussions thus far. And indeed, it seems that now President Trump is taking a softer line with China, trying to get some overall deal than he is with India, which is supposed to be a friend and ally as opposed to an adversary like China.
U.S. dependency on Chinese goods, from electronics to rare earth minerals, critical for advanced technologies, means harsher tariffs risk unleashing painful inflationary shocks and supply chain upheaval at home. U.S. Vice President Vance calls it complicated.
Well, the president said he's thinking about it, but he hasn't made any firm decisions. Obviously, the China issue is a little bit more complicated because our relationship with China, it affects a lot of other things that have nothing to do with the Russian situation. So the president's reviewing his options and, of course, going to make that decision when he decides.
The world watches as the giants cautiously extend their tariff ceasefire, a prelude to a summit that could decide the future shape of global trade and power.
Let's also tell you what else is lined up for you on Gravitas. We will tell you about China's DF-100 cruise missile, which can hit targets 1,200 miles away. From India, we will tell you about the anti-terror operations in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtawar, which has entered day 3. Also on the show, Nepal has opened the gates with nearly 100 restricted peaks now accessible and climbing fees waived. A new high for tourism coming up on the show. China has released rare footage of its DF-100 supersonic cruise missile, one of the People's Liberation Army PLA's most secretive and potentially most dangerous weapons against US warships and military bases in the region. The footage of the missile was aired as a part of a PLA documentary this week, and it offers the clearest view yet since the missile's debut in 2019, because back then only 2 seconds of official footage were made public before being completely deleted. The DF-100, sometimes referred to as the CJ-100, is a supersonic anti-ship cruise missile. The DF or Dongfeng is a prefix that is generally reserved for ballistic missiles, while CJ or Changjiang designates land attack cruise missiles. It has a reported range of 3,000 to 4,000 kilometers and a cruising speed of Mach 4. That's around 4,900 kilometers per hour. At that speed, a target could be hit in roughly 40 minutes from launch. The DF-100's range enables strikes far beyond China's immediate periphery. This places major logistics hubs in Taiwan, Japan and South Korea, along with US bases in Okinawa and Guam, as well as aircraft carriers operating deep in the Pacific, firmly within its strike zone. What's more, the DF-100 has a dual platform and can be deployed through land-based off-road launch vehicles or even from the H-69 bomber if air-based, which could effectively extend its strike range by 6,000 kilometers. And in the latest footage, the launch appears to take place in an urban setting. It's perhaps a rare shift from the remote locations typically used in PLA tests. According to experts, this could be a deliberate message that the DF-100 supersonic missile can be fired from anywhere, making it harder for adversaries to locate and destroy before launch. The missile is believed to be capable of hitting both moving ships and fixed high-value targets, from command centers to critical infrastructure, with meter-level accuracy. Its guidance system combines inertial navigation, China's Beidou satellite network and terrain matching sensors give it precision for so-called decapitation strikes or operations to paralyze enemy command structures. The DF-100 first appeared publicly in the 70th National Anniversary Parade in 2019. But even then, confusion reigned over its designation. It was announced as CJ-100 while its launch canister carried the DF-100 label. Now, here's why the timing of this new release is also extremely important, because it comes just weeks before China's planned September parade, marking the 80th anniversary of its victory over Japan in World War II. Experts say that the PLA rocket force has been under scrutiny recently. That's due to high-profile corruption probes. And so, this display sends a clear message. Whatever the political troubles, the hardware is still ready. And this is why military experts call the DF-100 one of China's trump card weapons. And while shifting focus to India, anti-terror operations continue for a third consecutive day in Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar. The encounter started between terrorist and security forces in Dul area of Kishtwar district in Jammu and Kashmir on Sunday. According to officials, 2 of the 3 terrorists are holed up at the operation site. Security forces also blasted one of the natural caves in the area in which they believe that terrorists could be hiding. Indian forces are engaged in 2 major anti-terror operations in Jammu and Kashmir, the 3rd day of the encounter in Kishtwar and the 12th day-long operation Akal in Kulgam, where 2 soldiers were killed. In action, the Kulgam operation has become one of the longest anti-terror operations in the Kashmir Valley ever. The gun battle titled Operation Akal is being carried out by Indian Army, including para commandos and RR, Jammu and Kashmir Police and CRPF. Forces, they are now using high-tech surveillance equipment, including drones and thermal imaging devices, along with elite para special forces brought in to carry the operation in Jammu and Kashmir. Another day in Gaza and another series of gruesome tales of Palestinians yielding to death from extreme hunger emerges. But there's almost always more than what meets the eye, with aid trucks trickling in Gaza, doubling as cash machines, offering benefits not to the hungry and hapless, but to the forces that power the fighting and keep wars alive. Ones that are not fought only with weapons. As per a report by the Wall Street Journal, aid trucks meant for distributing food, water, fuel, medicines and other supplies for those in the conflict zone are increasingly acting as cash centers for warlords, militias and authoritarian regimes instead of those needy and starving. These trucks are feeding war machines, namely armed forces, elite officials and other actors who keep the war machinery well-oiled. For students and youngsters in Gaza, their dreams and ambitions are marred by the daily hunt for food amid constant struggle for survival every single day in Gaza.
The voice of youth is not heard in Gaza. We have been saying this for a long time, that we want to live, we want to get educated, we want to travel. Now we are saying that we want to eat. Before the war, we had really high ambitions. It was so high to the extent that we were thinking that we want to travel, benefit our society. We were thinking of making things. Now all our thinking has gone downhill.
The World Health Organization urged for more aid to be brought in Gaza before Israel could seize control of the entire territory.
We want to make sure that hospitals are at least a little stocked up. We currently cannot do that, and we also want to rebuild our own reserves. And we currently are not able to do that in a proper way.
Getting aid into Gaza is rather monumental task in itself. Procuring it even more so, with chaos setting in and ordinary Palestinians scrambling before aid sites, walking kilometers just to secure a single 1 bag of wheat. As per Gaza health authorities, hundreds of people have died and hundreds more have been wounded since the new food distribution program run by Israel-backed foundation known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began nearly 2 months ago. And the demand almost outstrips supply, with the World Food Programme saying that 62,000 metric tons are required to enter Gaza every single month just to cover basic humanitarian food assistance needs. If distribution wasn't less horrific, the crippling problem of aid diversion has made matters far more complex, throwing a wrench into humanitarian operations. Imagine the very same aid meant to bring relief and respite to those in need is now being taxed and weaponized and used to pit one against the other, misplacing beneficiaries and adversaries. The question is, who takes accountability for it? The donors or the world leaders? Washington, D.C. is on the edge. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced federal takeover of D.C. police and ordered mobilization of 800 National Guard troops in the U.S. Capitol. Take a listen.
Today we're declaring public safety emergency in the District of Columbia, and Attorney General PM Bondi, who's fantastic, is taking command of the Metropolitan Police Department as of this moment. And I'll be making the appropriate notifications to Congress and to the mayor.
Trump has invoked emergency presidential powers, but soon a legal battle can break out in the courtrooms. Washington, D.C. comes under the administration of the District of Columbia, but its management is unlike any other American city. Despite having a separate mayor and council, ultimate power over the city rests with the Congress, and in some cases, the president himself. Trump announced that he is taking command of the Metropolitan Police using a provision in the 1973 Home Rule Act, which allows him to deploy the force for federal purposes in an emergency. But this power has its limits because he can't do it for up to 48 hours or for 30 days if he notifies key congressional leaders. An extension beyond 30 days will require congressional approval. Trump is also deploying the D.C. National Guard. Unlike National Guard units in other states, National Guards in the Capitol is always under presidential command and can be deployed without the consent of local government. Post-Comitatus Act limits the U.S. of the military for domestic law enforcement, but the Justice Department has long held that this ban does not apply to the D.C. Guard. When it comes to federalizing the entire D.C. government, Trump cannot do it alone. Under the Constitution of the United States, he would require backing of the Congress for the complete takeover of Washington, D.C. Democrats are slamming President Trump's move, calling it a political ploy and a distraction from other controversies, including the release of the Epstein files, tariff disputes, and his tax plan. Senator Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and former cabinet member Pete Buttigieg, all Democrat heavyweights, accused Trump of using the takeover to divert attention from other scandals and policy failures. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser also criticized Trump's action, noting that the city had achieved its lowest violent crime rate in 30 years. She emphasized that crime had declined not only from its post-pandemic peak in 2023.
We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
This is not the first time that Trump has flexed his special powers. He deployed federal officers to clear demonstrators in 2020 and also delayed mobilizing help during the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. A day after the Supreme Court ordered to remove all stray dogs from Delhi NCR and house them in shelters in 8 weeks, the top court has now issued a fresh directive to tackle stray dog menace within its area. According to the order, all leftover food has to be disposed of exclusively in covered dustbins. The circular cited a major increase in incidents of stray dogs roaming in the top court's corridors and even inside lifts within the Supreme Court complex. The Supreme Court's order, however, has sparked a major debate, with animal activists widely criticizing the decision, while the Delhi government is yet to take a stance. Earlier, Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta's meeting to discuss the order was postponed with no clarity yet on the new date. The Chief Minister said on Monday that she will prepare to address this issue soon.
The people of Delhi had been troubled for quite some time now on this issue. This problem had taken a formidable form and is now standing before Delhi, and providing a solution is very important.
However, Delhi Mayor Iqbal Singh has welcomed the top court order and assured that they will try to implement it within the next 6 weeks itself. On the other hand, animal rights activists have strongly criticized the apex court order and highlighted that Delhi has no government-run dog shelters and that the government would need to spend at least 15,000 crore rupees to build shelters for 3 lakh dogs in India's national capital.
It's not an implementable order, beta. All it's going to do is to create a law and order situation. In the last 3 hours, we have received over 3.5 lakh emails from people in Delhi saying, "Hum to ladenge." Are we going to have fighting in this peaceful, beautiful city? So this is not implementable. It will cost the government over 15,000 crores to even make the shelters. Or if agar kabhi jagah mile, that is if they find a place to construct the shelters, it will cost them 5 crores a week just in feeding. They will have to employ 1.5 lakh more people to look after them.
अनफॉर्चुनेट है कि ऐसा ऑर्डर जो इम्प्लीमेंट हो ही नहीं सकता, लाखों कुत्तों को किसी भी जगह रखने की कोई जगह ही नहीं है। दिल्ली में 10 एनिमल बर्थ कंट्रोल सेंटर्स हैं जो एमसीडी चलाती है, उनकी सबकी मिला के पूरी कैपेसिटी है 1000 कुत्तों की। 10 लाख कुत्ते कहाँ जाएंगे?
In a post on X, Lok Sabha leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi called the order a step back from decades of humane, science-backed policy. He stressed that dogs are voiceless souls and they should not be treated as problems to be eliminated. The order has also drawn sharp criticism from animal NGOs. PETA has described it as an impractical and illegal step. On the ground, animal rights activists and dog lovers are agitated over the judgment. Yesterday, the police detained several people who were demonstrating in front of India Gate against the order. Demonstrators allege that the dogs will be thrown out of Delhi and left to die.
Our demand is that the dogs shouldn't be taken away. They belong to this land too. Supreme Court is not accepting our petition requesting a stay on the order.
On Monday, Supreme Court issued the order after taking suo motu cognizance of the issue on July 28th, following a news report on the stray dog menace. Estimates suggest that there are around 8 lakh stray dogs in the national capital. While pronouncing the judgment, the court described the situation as grim and highlighted that many children have fallen prey to these dog bites. Wildfires are raging across the world, from Spain, Italy to Turkey and elsewhere. But in Canada, this might just be the new normal, with the country's wildfire season this year being the second worst on record. And experts warn this could very well be the beginning, when in reality what is happening may be far from normal, with the authorities warning that multiple wildfires are out of control. According to Canadian forest authorities, more than 72,000 square kilometers have burnt this year so far, which is more than double the 10-year average for this time of the year. But that's just half the problem. What wildfires do is emit large plumes of smoke that worsen the air quality of the place and create breathing and other respiratory difficulties among the residents living there. As per a map of fires and smoke plumes, much of the smoke shrouds the country's northeast. The worst smoke concentrations were in the small towns in northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan near the fires. And as per reports, the smokes from all these fires are drifting towards New York, raising alarms over the further spread of fires there. Now, why is all of this concerning? According to a federal database, the last 3 fire seasons are among the 10 worst on record, with 2023's devastating blazes taking the top spot and 2025 fast competing for that spot as well. The question is, will it get better? While some provinces have called for fire bans, a total ban on going in the woods has been issued in some others. It's a step, but surely the current situation warrants more. Experts suggest back-to-back fire seasons can in fact have disastrous consequences, with much of farmlands charred and forest losing the ability to regrow. Fewer trees means less carbon being stored, and that could increase emissions and contribute to global warming and possibly more forest fires in the future. All right. Artificial intelligence isn't just changing the way we live and work, it is rewriting the rules of wealth as well. And faster than any other boom in human history. Because this year alone, dozens of new billionaires have been minted, born from AI startups that in months have gone from bright ideas to companies worth billions of dollars. According to a report by CNBC, there are now nearly 500 private AI companies valued at over $1 billion each. Together, they are worth $2.7 trillion. 100 of them didn't even exist before 2023. Stock prices of giants like Nvidia, Meta and Microsoft have increased as well. Data centers, computing power and AI engineers are all cashing in on the frenzy that is AI. According to MIT researchers, we've never seen personal wealth created at this speed or scale ever before. For example, Meera Murati, once at OpenAI, launched her own AI firm called Thinking Machines Lab. And in February, that was when it was launched. By July, it was valued at $12 billion after raising the biggest seed round in history. Then there's Anthropic AI, which reportedly is in talks to raise $5 billion at a valuation of $170 billion. That's nearly 3 times its valuation in March. Its CEO and its 6 other founders are now likely multi-billionaires. That's according to the CNBC report. Then there is Anysphere. It was valued at $9.9 billion in a June fundraiser, and just weeks later, it was reportedly offered a valuation of $18 billion to $20 billion, which means that its 25-year-old founder, that's the age, and CEO, Michael Truell, is a billionaire. So here's the thing. What separates these new crop of billionaires is that unlike the dot-com boom of the late 1990s, most of these companies are in no hurry to go public. It's because venture capital, sovereign wealth funds, and family offices and other tech investors are constantly giving them investment so that they can stay private longer and keep growing. But that does not mean that there are no other ways to cash out. A booming secondary market now lets them sell their private shares to other investors without an IPO. These deals, called secondary sales or tender offers, are now becoming common. Some founders are even borrowing against their shares, using their stake in the company like collateral for a loan. It's a way to turn paper wealth into real money long before the company ever hits the stock market. OpenAI itself is planning a share sale to give employees cash at a jaw-dropping $500 billion valuation. It's an AI good rush. AI is minting billionaires, but whether it's minting lasting fortunes, that's a story still being written. The human world, with all its technological marvels, is a fortress built against the unpredictable forces of nature. We construct towering power plants to fuel our cities, believing our engineering makes us masters of our environment. But in a stunning silent blow, the animal kingdom has just struck a crippling blow to one of France's largest nuclear power plants. Our next report tells you how.
The French nuclear power plant at Gravitas, a colossal coastal bastion of energy production. It's designed to be impervious to all but the most catastrophic of events. Its sophisticated systems, from its reactors to its cooling apparatus, built to keep the lights on for millions, a testament to the power of human ingenuity. But its defenses, so robust against conventional threats, were utterly helpless against an attack from an ancient and unexpected enemy. A massive swarm of jellyfish, an army from the deep oceans, has clogged the plant's cooling water intake systems. The sheer weight and number of the creatures overwhelmed the filters, forcing an emergency shutdown of multiple reactors and bringing this industrial giant to its knees.
There were 4 reactors out of the 6 at Gravitas nuclear plant that were in production that had to shut down, that had an emergency shutdown of the reactor because jellyfish got into the channel that allows the 3rd circuit to pump water into the North Sea.
Au 3e circuit de pomper de l'eau dans la mer du Nord.
This stunning incident is not an isolated event, but a potent symptom of a world in flux. The North Sea, like oceans across the globe, is now experiencing record-breaking warmth, creating an ideal, supercharged breeding ground for these swarms. This very same phenomenon is also responsible for a curious and unsettling new reality in Britain's waters. As the seas heat up, extraordinary new species are now making their homes around the UK, a migration driven by changing temperatures. The arrival of octopus and bluefin tuna, once exotic visitors, now serves as a stark reminder of the profound, often invisible consequences of a warming planet. The jellyfish in France and the new species in the UK are 2 sides of a single global story. When the ocean strikes back, it does so in ways we can neither anticipate nor easily combat.
What if I told you a piece of rock from Mars is creating havoc on Earth? Needless to say, it is no ordinary rock for reasons more than one. For starters, weighing 54 pounds, this Martian meteorite has been sold for $5.3 million at a New York auction just last month, setting a fresh record as the most expensive meteorite ever auctioned. And now, Niger is probing this lavish sale of this giant red rock. But what is so special about it after all? Well, known as NWA 16788, this specimen is the largest known piece of Mars on Earth, roughly 70% larger than any other Martian meteorite discovered to date. Not just that. This captured the attention of thousands of visitors and sparked a 15-minute bidding war between online and phone bidders in what can be called a near-historic bidding. But why is Niger concerned? Well, this fragment was first discovered in a remote region of Niger in 2023, which brought renewed focus on the act of meteorite hunting itself. And Niger alleges This falls under the ambit of illicit trafficking, suggesting that the rock has been stolen from Niger. And many believe that the rock should go back to where it was earlier retrieved from. However, this is not the first time such an incident has been reported. In fact, meteorite hunting as an activity is growing in arid Sahara countries like Niger, which are now turning into prime spots for discovering these extraterrestrial material, given their favorable climatic conditions that aid in preservation of these rare rocks, many of whom are used for scientific studies or just objects. But the immediate question is, will Niger get some kind of credit and compensation for the rock sold at Sotheby's for millions, as many believe it rightfully should? Loud snoring, restless sleep and daytime sleepiness. Sounds familiar, right? Around 1 billion people around the world suffer from sleep apnea, a common sleep disorder where breathing starts and stops repeatedly during sleep. A new study now says the remedy is just a conch away. Yes, blowing a conch could help you sleep better, feel more alert during the day and even have fewer breathing problems at night. This is as per a study by the Eternal Health Center Care and Research Institute in India. Conch is a spiral-shaped shell, and blowing it is an ancient ritual in India that involves breathing in deeply and exhaling into the shell. The trial involved 30 people suffering from obstructive sleep apnea or OSA. The trials found that those who had practiced shunk blowing were 34% less sleepy during the day. They also had higher blood oxygen levels during the night and 4 to 5 fewer OSA episodes on an hour on an average. A larger trial involving several hospitals is now being planned in the future. All right, shifting our focus to Nepal. Nepal is home to majestic mountains and a favorite spot for mountaineers all over the world. But now, scaling new heights in the realm of tourism quite literally, because Nepal has not only granted access to nearly 100 of its previously restricted peaks, but it has also waived off their climbing fee. The Nepal government has made climbing almost 97 mountains in its remote western regions absolutely free of cost. As per officials, peaks ranging from over 5,000 to nearly 7,000 meters will be free to climb for the next 2 years. And this comes at a time when permit fees to summit Mount Everest, the world's highest peak during the peak season, will go up to at least $15,000 from September. The first such price hike in nearly a decade. But why such a move, if you wonder? To waive off climbing fee as per Nepal's tourism department, this is in a bid to attract tourists and climbers to offbeat and uncrowded destinations and unexplored sites. And it also acts as a means to boost tourism as a whole in Nepal. Mountaineering generates a major source of revenue for Nepal, which is home to 8 of the world's 10 tallest mountains, fetching close to $6 million last year. So, wouldn't waiving off climbing fee hurt the prospects of mountain tourism, then benefit it? The authorities seem to believe that less is more in certain cases, and a move that would have long-term impact than short-term benefits. Besides that, to encourage mountaineering as an overall activity, the Nepal government has also proposed making it mandatory for climbers attempting Mount Everest for the first time to scale one 7,000-meter peak at least. And well, with that, we slip into a very short break, but we're leaving you with Gravitas World View. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION World is One. Do stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back to WION The World is One, and thank you for staying with us. Time now for Pulse. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines. Ukraine's military says it is engaged in difficult combat near the cities of Pokrovsk and Dobropilia and has sent in reserves to block advances by small groups of Russian troops. In a dense urban